Welcome. I'm glad somebody had a copy of my book, so I'll know what to say this afternoon. This is actually what I say to clients, which is why I wrote it. And there's only about 3 pages in here on convincers. And the reason why it is very similar to what Scott said, I don't actually use any convincers with clients in my office. Now, if you go to YouTube and you type in hypnosis convincer, and you want to see videos of hypnotic convincers, oddly enough, you'll get me in 15 of the top 20 videos. I actually did that this morning. I thought to myself, wow, you know, if I'm going to talk about convincers, I should probably learn some convincers. So I went to YouTube and typed in YouTube convincers, and 15 of the videos were me actually teaching convincers. The reason why I know convincers is because I use them a lot in stage hypnosis. And I very rarely use them in clinical hypnosis. The reason why I very rarely use them in clinical hypnosis is that clients don't make an appointment with Richard Nongard at the Tulsa Hypnosis Center, drive all the way over to my office, pay my fee because I collect money up front before I see you, and then not want to be hypnotized. By definition, the people who come see me in my office are self-selecting, and so I don't need to convince them of anything. Now, if I'm not using convincers, and Scott's not using convincers, why even talk about convincers? Well, let's talk about convincers, and let's talk about suggestibility tests. And the words are often used interchangeably. And I guess I shouldn't say that I don't use convincers in my office. What I actually don't use is I don't use convincers from stage hypnosis in my clinical office. I'm not doing flashy stuff. Their fingers aren't being drawn together. I'm not sticking their eyelids together. I'm not sticking their hands together. I'm not having them in my office unable to stop doing this. I don't do the same things in my office that I do in stage hypnosis. But the concept of using things that we can call them convincers, we can call them suggestibility tests, to accomplish 3 things are actually what I use. And the 3 things that we want to accomplish, wow, look like people went into note-taking mode. I saw the pens come up. The 3 things that the convincers actually accomplish is they do let me build rapport with the person. It becomes an interactive process. So if I'm about to do hypnosis with somebody, I want to do something ahead of time that involves an exchange of ideas, an exchange of actions, an exchange of experiences, because that helps me build rapport. And so whether I use a flashy convincer like I might use in stage hypnosis, or whether I use something so simple many people wouldn't even recognize it as a convincer, it still serves that same purpose, to build rapport. A stage hypnotist is not using convincers to try to figure out who's hypnotizable. The reason why he might say the stage hypnotist, and now in a minute I'm going to give you what we call a suggestibility test, and the reason why is I want to find out who among you is most suggestible. Who of you is going to be best at doing this thing we call hypnosis? He might say that in his show. But remember, stage hypnosis is not about hypnosis, it's about entertainment. That's part of the show. What that stage hypnotist is really trying to do is get people who came to a comedy club but aren't having a good time and are just sitting in their seat waiting to be entertained, involved in the process. So that way they let go of any opposition to having a good time later on. The stage hypnotist doing convincers at a stage hypnosis show isn't measuring any susceptibility, and he's not trying to convince anything of anything. He's actually simply trying to involve the audience. One of my favorite lines, and you all know the fingers drawn together test. If you don't, we'll cover it here in a minute. I say, now as your fingers come together, by round of applause, how many of you have had your fingers come together? And so, since we haven't done that yet, by round of applause, how many of you have a clue what I'm talking about right now? All right, fantastic. Good. See, I've gotten you involved in the process. That's what, in stage hypnosis, a convincer is for. That's what it's for in my office as well. It's to get involved with, exchange ideas, and exchange experiences with somebody, because in a minute, I'm about to take them into a setting that's really pretty intimate. I'm going to have them alone in my office, sitting in my chair, a place they've never been before, closing their eyes and doing something that may appear to be the conscious mind odd or strange or bizarre or something they normally or typically wouldn't do. So convincers serve the purpose, number one, of simply building rapport by creating involvement. The second thing that convincers or suggestibility tests do is they don't measure suggestibility. We don't need to measure that. Everybody is hypnotizable. There isn't a person who can't be hypnotized. I figure you all probably know that by now. Now, there are some people who might not like guys with short, spiky hair. And there are some people who might not like the sound of my voice. And there are some people who might not like men dressed in velour jackets from the 1970s.
Yeah.
Okay? There may be some people who, for whatever reason, won't let me guide them through the process, but that doesn't mean they can't be hypnotized. There's a YouTube video I put up, it's really pretty amazing to me. In 2006, my son was out, he was probably 13 or 14 at the time, he was out on the front sidewalk of our house, and he had like a can of spray paint, and I walked out the front door, and there he was going, take that, take that, take that, and he was blowing spray paint up into the air. And I said, what the hell are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm killing the ozone layer. I can't believe I'm telling the story of California. I said, why are you killing the ozone layer? He said, oh, because we're going to rename it the R-zone layer. I said, what the hell are you talking about? The R-zone layer. He said, oh, I'm making a video. I said, a video for what? He said, for YouTube. I said, what the hell is a YouTube? This is 2006. He said, oh, it's this really cool website. You can make a video about anything and people will watch it. I said, you're making a video about killing off the ozone layer? He said, yeah, but that's only because we're going to name it the R-zone layer, and we're not really killing off the ozone layer because I'm not that powerful, but it'll make a great video. I thought to myself, dumb kids. I walked back into the house, went back to my office, sat down. A little while later, my son came in the room. He said, hey, you make videos? I said, yeah. He said, you should put one up on YouTube. I said, why? He said, because it'd be cool if you hypnotized everybody on the internet. I said to him, that's a stupid idea, just like the R-zone layer. I didn't really say that, but I thought it. And then I thought about it for a minute, and I thought, wouldn't that be cool if I hypnotized people on the internet? So I took a video clip from class, and I put it up on the internet, and that video today has actually over 1 million views. It's showing about 800 to 80,000 views on the video. I had about 330,000 views, and then I changed my name and re-uploaded it. So really, it's got about 1.2 million views. That was pretty amazing. And it's not even anything profound. It's me at a class actually taking people through a simple process of progressive muscle relaxation hypnosis. What's interesting is literally 1 million people have watched this video, and there are thousands and thousands of likes, and there's just a handful of dislikes. And for every negative comment, which is actually probably a 15-year-old troll anyway, there's 100 positive comments. It's another YouTube video I put up several years ago. I wanted to make a video for hypnotists so they could see a process I use to help people quit smoking. And so I actually had, it was actually a friend of my ex-wife's. He worked at a bar, and he wanted to quit smoking. And he kept saying to my ex-wife, hey, can I go see Richard? Which is code for I don't want to call him directly because he'll make me pay. And because she kept bothering me to see her friend, and because I didn't want to say no, I agreed, but I knew he had no cash. And so I said to him, all right, you want me to hypnotize you to quit smoking? He said, yes, I'm so ready to quit smoking. I said, great. I said, will you do me a favor though? Will you let me videotape the session so that I can actually post this so other hypnotists can see the process that I go through to help a person quit smoking? Would you do that since you're not paying me? And he said, no, sure, I have no problem with that. So because YouTube at the time had a 10-minute restriction on videos, I only had 10 minutes to hypnotize the guy who smoked 3 packs a day and worked in a bar 6 days a week as the karaoke man to quit smoking. So I put that clip up on YouTube, and I put it up there so you guys could see what I sometimes do with smokers. It's an 8-minute clip. What's interesting was that night, I went over to the bar where he works, just to see if he was still smoking. Nope. The next night, I went to the karaoke bar he was at, still not smoking. A week later, still not smoking. That was, by the way, about 3.5 years ago. He's still not smoking. But what's more interesting is I put that video up so that you could see the process that I go through. But there are over 150,000 people who've watched that video, and the comments that are on there are like the comment I got this morning. This morning I woke up, checked my email, and one of the comments says, "Hey man, thanks for posting this video. It's been 3 days since I discovered it and I haven't had a cigarette since." And there are literally hundreds of people who I have no idea who they are who have posted the exact same thing. Hypnosis is simple. We can all be hypnotized. There isn't anybody who can't be hypnotized. There may be somebody who won't follow my directions, or there might be somebody who, for some bias, either known or unknown, just can't relate to me and rejects what I have to offer them. There may be people who, for legitimate reasons, simply don't click with me. And there may be people who I haven't really quite adapted my repertoire of skills to meet them at their point of need. And I recognize that I don't work well with everybody all the time. There are some people who simply would work better with somebody else, whether it's personality or skill or something else. But that doesn't mean that you can't be hypnotized. Every one of us, of course, experiences hypnosis every single day. We go in and out of being awake and asleep, paying attention and losing attention throughout each and every day, all day long. This is what our minds are doing, constantly going between delta levels of deep sleep and beta levels of alertness and theta levels of not asleep, chilling out, especially at this time of day. That's why Scott gave me this time squat. He knew that this is the after lunch sandwich settling in syndrome time period. Easy to hypnotize people at 1:30 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But everybody can be hypnotized. There's no need for a suggestibility test. These tests, these things that we call convincers, aren't really measuring somebody's suitability to be hypnotized or their capacity to be hypnotized, because everybody can be hypnotized. Instead, it's helping us build rapport, it's helping us to create an interactive experience for the person, it's getting them in the habit of following my directions and suggestions. In fact, by the time a person actually in my office closes their eyes and lets their head relax, I've actually probably done most of the hypnotic work. And one of the ways I know that the work is done is when they follow my suggestions. So if they follow my suggestions for silly little convincer tests, that means they're going to be following my suggestions for other experiences later on. And if they're following my suggestions, since the suggestion I'm going to give them is, when you leave my office, you'll no longer have the desire to chase cars, finding it easy to stay seated on the lawn at all times, they will take action on that suggestion. I know some of you are like, what? That was actually kind of funny. At like 4 o'clock this afternoon, you're going to be like, So when we're talking about convincers, we're not talking about suggestibility tests. And we're really not talking about convincers. Convincers has the connotation of I have to convince somebody that they want to be hypnotized. This isn't even true in stage hypnosis. And most of you know I do clinical hypnosis as well as stage hypnosis. I perform stage hypnosis everywhere from comedy clubs to college shows to private parties to corporate events to on the Las Vegas Strip. I performed at several different casinos in Las Vegas. I performed at, I forget the name of the casinos in Las Vegas. Sometimes I try to block them all online. The old Aladdin, Planet Hollywood. You've probably seen some clips of me at the Riviera, Tropicana. So I've done stage hypnosis in a lot of different venues. I just did with John Sorbonne a great show at the Mid-America Hypnosis Conference in Chicago. Was anyone there at the Mid-America Convention this year? That was pretty awesome. It was a lot of fun. It's kind of cool doing a stage hypnosis show for hypnotists. We tried to do something entirely different. A lot of those clips, by the way, are up on YouTube. And in stage hypnosis, I do convincers or I do suggestibility tests the old-fashioned way. I get the audience involved and I do silly little tricks with them. But again, I'm not measuring suggestibility and I'm not really trying to convince anybody of anything. You see, when they come to a stage hypnosis show, just like my office, they're already convinced that they want to have fun and let loose and have a great evening, or they wouldn't have come to a show. In Las Vegas, people think, oh, it must be really difficult to do a show in Las Vegas. People pay $50 for a show ticket in Las Vegas. People save up all year long so they can leave the kids at home with mom and come out to Las Vegas for 3 or 4 days. They can usually go to 1, maybe 2 shows. When they buy a $50 ticket for a show in Las Vegas, that's real money. It's what they've saved up for. They've been looking forward to it all year long. They don't need to be convinced to let loose and have a fun time. That's why they came there. The kids at the after prom parties, people like, oh, working with high schoolers and stage hypnosis, that must be difficult. No way, they're the easiest of all. Why? Number one, because that student age level is the most creative part of life. You guys are students again, don't you feel smarter now than you did even a month or two ago? I've been reading on the forum. A lot of you have been doing a lot of studying. You've been doing homework before the class started. You've been in that groove of learning. Don't you feel kind of smarter right now? Like, you have that vibe like, I'm as smart as I used to be. Wow, it's still there. It's pretty cool. So high school kids are creative. They're at that moment of learning. But they've been busy all year long. After prom party or a graduation party at the end of the school year, you don't have to convince them to let loose and have fun. It's easy to do a stage hypnosis show. Just like it's easy to do hypnosis in my office. Now I recognize in this class, many of you have years of experience doing hypnosis. Some of you are in private practice where you see clients on a regular basis and have been earning your living doing this. And yet there are others in class with no experience. Those of you who have experience, like James and others, Jackie, who've been seeing clients for a long period of time, you'll verify this to the rest of the class members, because new hypnotists have this great fear: what if when they come to my office, they don't want to be hypnotized? Or what if when they come to my office, they're afraid to be hypnotized? Or what if when they come to my office, they don't do the things that I ask them to do? And as soon as you start doing professional hypnosis practice, you'll realize all of those fears are unrealistic. People don't call, in my case, here's the way it works. They hear an ad on the radio. I don't advertise on the radio anymore. I actually used to do a lot of radio advertising. They hear an ad on the radio, and they think about it, and then they hear it again, and they think about it, then they hear it again. This is the way radio advertising and print advertising works, repetition. And then they make the call. They make the call, they get information, they talk to somebody, and then they make a commitment by scheduling an appointment. And because hypnosis isn't cheap, it costs real money, they figure out how they're going to pay for this, and they bring that real money to my office, probably having taken time off of work, which costs them even more money. And people don't do this because they're not sure of it. By the time people come to my office at the Tulsa Hypnosis Center, they have already made the decision that they would like to go into hypnosis and that they would like me to hypnotize them. Now, one of the things that makes this easy is the internet. Back in the old days, when there was just a radio ad, they had 30 seconds to see me or hear me on the radio. They had to imagine what I looked like. They had to imagine what the office was like. And maybe there was a little more unknown, but in the era of the internet, it's really pretty easy, because they can go to my website, tulsahypnosis.com. They can actually see pictures of my office, the furniture that they're going to be sitting on. They can have the process of hypnosis explained to them, and they all watch the videos that are posted on my website ahead of time. And most of them will actually go through one of those practice sessions that's on my website, and so they're already familiar with me, my style, and what services I have to offer before they get to my office. I do not have resistant clients. Now, I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is also known as the Buckle of the Bible Belt. In fact, I'm right between Oral Roberts University and Ken Hagin Ministries, Rhema Bible College. And people have said to me, "Oh, don't you find that Christians are biased against hypnosis and don't want to be hypnotized?" Guess what? They don't call the Tulsa Hypnosis Center to make an appointment with the hypnotist. My mother, by the way, makes a great workshop example, because she falls into that fundamentalist, evangelical, Christian, buckle of the Bible belt, non-thinking category that is deathly afraid of hypnosis. And so I remember when I moved my office into a building on Lewis Avenue, which was just on the street from Oral Roberts University and just on the street from my mother's house. And I invited my mom over to see my new office, and it said, the Tulsa Hypnosis Center. And Mom said, "Oh my gosh, it says the Tulsa Hypnosis Center, Richard Nongard." I said, "Yes, I know, that's the name of my business." And she said, "Why don't you call it something else?" I said, "Well, I want people to know what I do." And she said, "I know, but some people might not want to be hypnotized." I said, "Like who?" And she said, "Like the people I know." And I said, "Well, then I don't want them calling me. I do not feel a need to be the person who has the solution for all 7 billion people on planet Earth. If somebody has an opposition to hypnosis, whether it's based in fact or fantasy, is irrelevant to me. Don't come see me." My mom said, "Well, why don't you call it the Tulsa Wellness Center?" Because I already have a sign. It's called the Tulsa Hypnosis Center. "Why don't you're a therapist, licensed, why do you call it you know, the Tulsa Therapy Center. I said, well, I don't want to do therapy any longer. I only want to do hypnosis. What she really didn't want was her friends driving by seeing the Tulsa Hypnosis Center with her son's name underneath. But that was a debate have later on. And so folks who are opposed to hypnosis don't call me. The only people who call me are people who want to be hypnotized. So when they get to my office, I don't really need to do convincers. I really don't need to do suggestibility tests. But yet, I do some. I do some with some clients that I bring right from stage hypnosis and into the clinical office, and I'll share with you which ones I use and why I use them. Then there are other things that I do in the work that I do that no other hypnotist would call them a convincer, but really they are, because they accomplish these things. Number one, they help me to build rapport. Number two, it involves a person in a process. Number three, it begins the process of suggestibility. And so even though we wouldn't call them suggestibility tests, they really are. And so I'm going to share with you first, my first and favorite suggestibility test or convincer, if you want to call it that. It's really what it is. So the way we're going to do this is really simple. I'm going to be the hypnotist, and you all are going to be my client. Okay? And this is going to be very Carl Jung collective consciousness. You're all just going to be one giant client, the amoeba client, right? And you're all going to come to me as one. And this is really a convincer. Usually there's one person. This is really a group activity, so we'll figure out how to turn it into a group activity. But imagine that I'm here in my office, and let me explain how my office is set up. I think there's actually some pictures that I sent Scott. Are you going to show those sometime?
At some point, yeah. I don't know what day he's going to go over what a hypnosis office.
You can actually see some pictures. And my office isn't complex. It's really pretty simple. They come in the door. I can actually hear them clip-clop down the hallway because the hallway's made out of tile. Because they have an appointment, I know it's them, so I know they're coming. I don't stack people back to back, so they have to wait for me. I'm not really into the whole waiting thing. And so I know they're coming, and so I'm sitting at my desk and I'm actually waiting for them. Usually I'm surfing the internet, checking my email, whatever else. And they're coming in the door, and I know they're coming in the door, so as soon as they come in the door, I stand up and I greet them. I say, hey, hi, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Oh, fantastic. You are?
Alfredo.
Alfredo, okay, great. Come on in, come on in. Now, I already know his name because it's on my appointment book, but that's a way of just confirming that the pronunciation is correct, and you know, it's polite. They don't think that you forgot who they are. After all, we've never met before. So great, come on in, have a seat. And I have them sit at it. I have my desk is here, and I sit behind my desk, and they're actually sitting in front of my desk. By the way, they're closest to the door. So what does this communicate to a person who, to this point, obviously isn't afraid of a hypnotist, or they wouldn't have called the Tulsa Hypnosis Center, but still might have some initial reservation about the process? They convince they're safe. Look, I'm the one who's trapped, not them. They can get up and walk right out that door anytime they wanted to. They don't. And when they come in my office, you'll see the pictures. It's a professional office with a professional desk, with professional certificates in a professional medical center. My next door neighbor is a dermatologist. In fact, my next door neighbor is my dermatologist. If you have red hair, Irish skin like I do, you need a dermatologist when you get older. And I would like to recommend my next door neighbor to you if you're ever in Tulsa. You need a mole or a wart removed. So I'm in a professional office building. I got some chiropractors on the other side. And so when they come in, they're in the safe place, and they can see that this is a professional environment. And they can see probably that I'm a professional too. In fact, I'm actually more casual with you guys than I am with clients. I would never even consider wearing jeans to my office. The thought wouldn't even cross my mind. I usually wear, because I'm bad at matching clothes, in case you haven't noticed, I usually just wear a suit with either a blue or a white shirt and no tie. So I usually wear a black suit with a white shirt or a blue tie. Some of you have seen pictures of me in a suit. Sometimes I'll go wild and wear the yellow tie, but that's probably just 1 out of 10 times. And so they can see that here's a well-dressed, educated professional in a professional building with comfortable furniture, and there they are. That's really the first convincer. The first convincer is, hey, this isn't creepy. This is just like my attorney or my accountant or a doctor's office or any other professional environment. and they're immediately at ease. That's really the first convincer. Now back to our giant collective convincer. My favorite convincer in in clinical hypnosis is one that I've actually borrowed from stage hypnosis. In stage hypnosis, I've seen the stage hypnotists do this. They'll get the committee members up on stage, and they'll actually say, now before we go any further, what I'd like you to do is take your eyes, close your eyes, and let your body relax. Don't worry, I'm not hypnotizing you now. And now just lean your shoulder on the person, or lean your head on the person next to you. Okay? And they get the whole committee doing that. And then they'll say, now go ahead and sit up in the chair and open your eyes. Were you able to do that? And everyone's like, yeah. And then the stage hypnotist will explain, and that's exactly what hypnosis is going to feel like. It's going to feel like you're laying here on stage, simply resting your head on the person next to you. The normal existing process, it builds rapport, it creates interaction. So I actually do that with my clients in my office if I do a convincer at all. I'll say to my client, well, I'm really glad you're here, great, now that we're sitting down. And so tell me, what brought you to today's session? Stephanie, who made the appointment, she didn't write down why you were coming. Usually she does. So what brought you to today's session? This is a real question.
So that's
You can really role play.
Fear of snakes.
What?
Fear of spiders.
Oh, okay. You know, afraid of spiders, fantastic. You know, I've worked with a lot of people who are afraid of spiders. And hypnosis is one of those great things for use with phobias. How is it that you heard about our office?
I saw an ad in the newspaper.
Oh, you saw our ad in the newspaper. But, you know, we've been running that ad in Insect Journal now for probably about 8 months, and we found that a lot of people are really afraid of spiders, even though they subscribe to that journal. And so I'm glad that you saw our ad and were able to come in today. That's fantastic. Have you ever experienced hypnosis before? Have you ever seen a hypnotist before, or do you know anything about hypnosis?
Yes, a stage hypnosis, a couple
Oh,
shows.
you know, stage hypnosis. You know, a lot of people come in here and they've seen a stage hypnosis on a cruise ship or Las Vegas or a fair. And what we're going to do today really is entirely different. Hypnosis is the same. I'm not going to have you do any silly stuff. In fact, when you're here in my office, you're always going to be in control. You're always going to hear my voice. Hypnosis is not a state of sleep, so you'll never be asleep. You'll always be relaxed, but you'll never be asleep. And really, it's a state of learning. In fact, the easiest way for me to explain hypnosis is to let you experience what it feels like. So before we go any further here, can we take a minute to do that? Would that be okay with you if I just show you what hypnosis felt like? All right, cool. Now, most of the time in hypnosis, we have a person close the eyes. The reason why we do that is because when we close the eyes, we can block out the distractions of the day. In fact, the person doesn't have to have their eyes closed in order to be hypnotized. You saw a stage hypnosis show, and during that show, sometimes people, their eyes were open, they were up doing silly stuff. But I find that at the end of a busy day, especially when you work at a zoo and you have to deal with the prospect of running into a spider, it feels good to just take a minute to set aside the concerns of the day and close the eyes. So before we go any further, I'm not going to do hypnosis here. Just go ahead and close your eyes. Everyone go ahead and close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, simply count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And go ahead and open your eyes. Were you able to do that? Did you do that? I had my eyes closed so I couldn't see. Did you do that?
Yeah.
Awesome. You know, that's exactly what hypnosis feels like. It feels like you're sitting there and your eyes are closed and some guy's counting to 5. It's not a magical or mystical state, but in this state of focused attention, focusing on my voice, focusing on the suggestions I give, we can create new learnings. And really, hypnosis is about learning. I'm actually a teacher. To this point, you've been afraid of spiders. I understand that you're afraid of spiders because when you were cleaning out the monkey cages last month, you were attacked by 72 wild arachnoids and then escaped from the exhibit next door, because I did read about that in the newspaper. And that can certainly be extremely difficult, and it can certainly be extremely traumatic. But when something like that happens, we create a learning from it. And so we learn every time I have to clean out the monkey cage, I'm at risk of being attacked. We know that learning isn't really a valid learning. I mean, intellectually we know that. We know because it was in the newspaper that the reason why the Iroquois were out was because the guy who's in charge of that exhibit quit because the funding wasn't there and let those spiders out. We know that's not going to happen again. He's not allowed on zoo property anymore. But nonetheless, that learning is there. And so chances are pretty good, every time you get near the monkey cages, you've probably found that anxiety building up.
Yeah, so if I see a magazine with a spider, you start getting ready.
Yeah, you start feeling it right there in your heart, yeah. Chest palpitations and the more intense breathing, all those signs of anxiety.
Yeah.
In fact, over the last month, since this episode, you've probably learned to associate a lot of things with fears. For example, when you get in your car now, do you look around for wild spiders before you turn on the keys? Yeah, right. And so that becomes a learned pattern. You've never seen a spider in your car before, correct? But yet now you're looking for them in the car because you've learned to look for the fear. So in hypnosis, when your eyes are closed, when I'm counting from 1 to 5, even though you can hear my voice, even though you could open your eyes if you wanted to, in this place of comfort and safety, I'm going to help you rewrite those old learnings and associations with new associations and new learnings. Sound good? Fantastic. And you can go ahead and open your eyes, because this is only a demonstration. That's the other thing that a convincer does, is the process of interaction allows me to bring a person into trance. Too bad we didn't have a camera right this way so you could see him, because his eyes were already closed listening to me explain hypnosis. That's really a convincer though. I've normalized the process. I've explained what I was going to do. There's nothing creepy going on here. My convincer wasn't dramatic. His hands didn't get locked together. I didn't stick his eyeballs together. I simply said to him, here's what hypnosis is like. It's like you're sitting there with your eyes closed, and when he opened his eyes, I told him what hypnosis does. It helps me help him break those negative associations and learn something new. That's what I think hypnosis does. I think hypnosis is a learning process. I view myself really as a teacher rather than as a wizard. I kind of wish that I was a natural mystical wizard, but I'm not. I'm just a teacher. And I can teach you, even though that experience was difficult, to be able to do your job, clean out those monkey cages without having a panic attack, without having to take any more time off work. Ready? So really that's a convincer. We wouldn't associate that as being a convincer, but it really is just having a person close their eyes, count to 5, open their eyes. And it's a great way of normalizing, taking the mystery out of hypnosis. Now, let's go into some of the traditional convincers that we think of when we think about hypnotic convincers. Seemed like you all knew what the fingers drawn together test was. This is probably one of my favorite convincers in stage hypnosis, although I rarely use it in clinical hypnosis, but I do on occasion, and I'll tell you who I use it with. For those of you, did you guys already do this yesterday? It sounds like you actually did. We'll do it again. This will be pretty simple. Okay? What I'd like everyone to do is raise your hands, hold them together just like that. I hear that enthusiasm among some of you. Take your 2 fingers, hold them about an inch apart, just like that. And I want you to pick a spot between those 2 fingers, and stare at that spot. And now imagine vividly 2 powerful magnets on the ends of those fingers, drawing those fingers together, drawing them powerfully magnetized closer and closer together, and see those fingers come together and eventually touch it. And now, by a round of applause, how many of you saw your fingers come together at all? By the way, I'm going to show you a trick. Come on up here because you're in front. Some of you might say to yourself, okay, what if it doesn't work? I'm going to teach you how to make it work. By the way, how many of you didn't see your fingers come together, all right? Okay, there's always a couple people whose fingers don't come together. Part of that is in a group environment, I have 2 things going on here. One, one size fits all hypnosis doesn't always work. That's why 20 people are come up for a stage hypnosis show, but only 15 remain for the show. Okay? Again, the same thing. If I do a group convincer or induction or whatever else, some of you aren't going to respond to it, especially if you have 30 people. It doesn't mean that you can't do hypnosis or that you're not responsive. It just means that that one wasn't for you. In my office, one of the reasons why I don't do convincers with people I've never met before is because I don't know which ones are for them. This one never fails. Go ahead, close your eyes, count to 5. Now open your eyes. That's what hypnosis feels like. It feels like you're sitting there and somebody's counting to 5. It's not a magical or mystical state, it's a place of learning. That one never fails. Got a 100% success rate on it. Is there anybody here who didn't close their eyes and count to 5? Everybody can follow that one. This one's a little more high risk because, as we can see, some people don't respond to it. If you find yourself in a situation where you have somebody who's not as responsive to this as you would like, this will dramatically increase the response level. All right, so what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to hold your fingers together, hold out your 2 fingers 1 inch apart, and stare at a spot directly between those 2 fingers. Okay? Stare at a spot between those 2 fingers. And now imagine 2 powerful magnets on the ends of each finger. Imagine I put those magnets there, and those magnets are drawing closer and closer and closer together, faster and faster. Imagine taking a wire, putting those fingers together with that wire, wrapping them tightly, 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 tightly. Did you see that? I wrapped them. When I wrapped them, the fingers went. So if you have somebody whose fingers aren't coming together, you simply say, and imagine I'm taking a wire and wrapping them around tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And for the 15% whose fingers aren't coming together, 14% or 14 out of those 15 people, their fingers are going to come together just like that. And then if you got that 0.01% who you couldn't get their fingers together, then you say this. You have an amazing power of concentration. I've been asking you to follow my directions, and yet you've used the resilient power of the mind in order to really stay focused on that spot directly between those fingers, haven't you? Awesome. Well, you're going to do great tonight. So have a seat back in your chair. And that's what we need to do. Now, I don't really use this in my office with clients who come in. You know, a 44-year-old client who calls me because they want to quit smoking. Actually, let me rephrase that. A 59-year-old client who calls me to quit smoking, because most of the people who call me are in their late 50s and early 60s. Maybe it's my demographics, I don't know why, but you know, people don't want to quit smoking when they're 23, and if they do, they don't call a hypnotist. People call a hypnotist last. They call me when they have COPD. They call me when they got diagnosed with cancer. They call me when they've tried everything else. So, but I don't whip this out with every client, but here's how I do use this with. Let's say you're in my office and you're a kid. You're an adolescent. Now, it's actually highly unlikely that you're in my office and you're an adolescent because I had my own adolescence. And because I have my own adolescence, I'm uninterested in meeting anybody else's adolescents. And so, because I have worked in adolescent psychiatric treatment programs, and because I have my own kids, I am absolutely 100% uninterested in meeting or working with your kids. And so my practice is restricted to adults only. I do not see or treat children at all. I refer all of them. There are 2 categories where I do see kids. And only 2 categories. And only with the parent in the room, by the way. By the way, people always say to me, can I bring my husband? Can I bring my friend? My answer is sure. I do not understand the hypnotist who won't let their friend or their relative or whatever else in the room with them. I always explain to the relative, this is a lot like watching grass grow, watching hypnosis. But since they asked you to, you're more than welcome to stay. In fact, you can put the headphones on and you can actually follow my directions also, if you'd like to. I don't mind doing that. It's one more person to see that hypnosis was effective, normal, fun, and helpful, and so is one more potential client, one more professional referral. So if they want to bring a chaperone, more power to them. I have absolutely no problem with that. If they're a minor, they will have a chaperone or I won't see them. here are the two categories of minors that I do see, that I do actually work with, and I enjoy working with both of these. Category number one is professional athletes or semi-pro athletes. You know, these people who are winning the Olympics are 14, 15, 17, 18, unless they're Chinese, in which case they're 9, 10, and 11. But for the most part, these top athletes are pretty darn young. And I used to do a lot of advertising on a sports radio station, and I like doing sports performance hypnosis. And I've worked with some top athletes around the world, and I've worked with them in a number of different competitive sports. And so when I see them, I'm dealing with 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. The other group who I work with who are adolescents who I will see are the super achieving academic kids. Now some of you know my friend Howie Berg from Dallas, and Howie is Mr. Reader, the world's fastest reader. In fact, if you've ever taken the speed reading program, maybe you read Howie's books or used his program, and Howie's a friend of mine. Howie owns a high school in Dallas. It's a private high school. You ever see these stories about the kid? You know, 17-year-old genius graduates with triple PhD from UCI at age 16. You see those news stories? Those are Howie's students. And so I don't work with, you know, the D kid who's flunking out of high school his junior year, but I work with the top level academics who are attempting to improve their test-taking performance, their learning, memory, and recall. I like working with those kids too. So if I have an adolescent in my office, I'll often show them this, and here's the way it works. Just because you're sitting in front, I guess you get to keep being my client. So imagine you're 14 years old, and you're now here to see Richard because you're the world's greatest shot putter. Well, almost. If you can just beat the other guy, then you'll be the world's greatest shot putter. So you're my semi-pro athlete competing in this year's Olympics, and you're there in my office. Now, you're here because probably your mom or your dad, or your coach, who's probably your mom or your dad, said you need to see a hypnotist. Because if Tiger Woods can succeed with a hypnotist, you can succeed with a hypnotist too. Or, you know, mom and dad heard stories about the Russian Olympic team not having any money for equipment. And so they used the power of hypnosis to help their athletes in the 50s and 60s using hypnotic techniques, despite the fact that they couldn't actually practice the sport, which, by the way, is true and some really interesting stuff. And so your mom and dad probably told you to come here, and you probably aren't opposed to it, but because you're still a 14-year-old kid, you think it's kind of goofy. That's the way kids are. And so you're probably going to say to me at some point, you know, my mom and dad told me to come here, and it seems like a cool idea. I've heard of other athletes using hypnosis, but I don't get it. How does this really help me become a better shot putter? Or how's this really going to help me pass a test, or whatever it is? And then I usually say to the kid, oh, I love teaching people how to use hypnosis. It's a great skill to help people improve performance, whether that's academic or sports, and simply to learn how to take self-control, both physically and mentally, in difficult situations. You know, when you get out there and the crowd is roaring, and you hear somebody blowing that uvula thing, or whatever it is, what's that thing called? Vuvuzela. Yeah, the uvula, that's the thing hanging out. So you hear somebody blowing that uvula thing, right? It catches your attention, you're not quite able to do that. Has that ever happened to you? Well, that's how hypnosis is useful, because it can help you recenter yourself even in a difficult situation. Or have you ever had this situation? You're ready to do the shot put thing, and right at that moment you realize your shoelace isn't tied. Has that ever happened to you? And so you know you can't tie your shoelace, but you just can't, you're out of that zone. Has that ever happened? Yeah. And so hypnosis really helps a person get in that zone. Here, let me show you what I mean. I mean, the mind is really creative. Here, go ahead and take your hands, just hold them together just like this. Okay? And hold your fingers out about that far apart, about an inch apart. And now imagine a spot, focus on a spot directly between those two fingers. Just like you do in your sport, that intense focus right between those two fingers. Now imagine two powerful magnets on the ends of those fingers, drawing those fingers together, tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter together, locked down together. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Now, you can let go of your fingers. Back to normal. Okay, great. All right, later on we'll be doing some stage hypnosis here. We have a great subject, but back to our example with the kid in the office, that was just an example of using the creative. You know there weren't any magnets behind attached to those two fingers, right? And did you notice something? I asked you to hold your hands here, and I asked you to stare at a spot between those two fingers, but those fingers didn't start moving until I suggested two powerful magnets were moving it. Did you notice that? Yeah. That's the power of our creative mind. What I'm going to do in our hypnosis session is I'm going to show you how to use that creative part of the mind to accomplish anything. Even to throw that shot put when the shoelace isn't tied. And even to be able to hit your mark when the crowd is going wild. And it's a lot noisier than it was in practice. Sound good? Awesome. So, I might use this convincer particularly with kids because they tend to like it. The cool thing about this is when he leaves, his friends are going to say what to him? Hey, what do you do in hypnosis, man? Right? Show me on the dolly where the hypnotist touched you. What's going to happen is, you can edit that off the video.
That's on there. That's forever on the internet. That's there.
There's a little bit of stage hypnotist in me still. So the high school buddies are going to come up to him and they're going to say, hey man, what do you do in hypnosis? And the high school kid is going to say, you know, I don't really know what happened in hypnosis. I mean, I've been playing Hypnosis, but let me show you this really cool thing. Hold your hands out together, just like this. They're going to bring this home with them. And it's a great thing. So let's say you have a husband or wife who's in your office and they keep talking about their husband or wife who's curious about what's going to be happening, etc. This is a cool thing to do with them because they're going to take that home and they're going to use that to explain hypnosis to their family members. Now let's talk about a couple other convincers. Let's talk about the ILOC test. There are people out there teaching the old Dave Elliman induction, which is you must get ILOC before you can do hypnosis. In other words, that convincer, locking their eyes together, must be what you do before you can do a hypnosis session. That's classic Dave Elliman hypnotic induction. We want to get eye catalepsy, we want to get an eye lock first, because until we have the manifestation of that phenomena, we don't know if they're going to follow the other suggestions. I think that logic is wrong. We know they're going to follow the suggestions because they told me they were, they showed up at my office and they paid me. Yeah.
This is kind of the point I've been waiting for you to get to.
Sometimes it takes me a while to get there.
That's why I was saving up this question. At that point, isn't the idea of the convincer that they become convinced that they are hypnotized? Not that they want to be, not that they can be.
So keep holding that thought. Keep holding that thought, because yes, in a minute we're going to move the induction into the induction, which is where I actually think it belongs. Okay? So I'm going to answer that question directly, but in a better way in a moment.
Okay.
So hold that thought. Yeah, it's nice if during this process they realize they're hypnotized. I don't spend much time doing convincers with people. Again, I'm teaching you these things because we need to know them because they are useful to some of the clients some of the time. The ILOC convincer, you've probably all learned, and I think it's a lousy one in an office. You've never met me before. You're now alone in my office with me, and I'm going to stick your eyes together. It's 2012. This is creepy. It's not 1946. Okay? And so I don't do that. But when do I do the ILOC convincer? I do it with waitresses. Here's the way it works, and it's really not my choice. I go out to dinner with my kids, remember the adolescents I referred to? And we'll sit down at dinner, and the waitress will come by and say, hi, I'm your waitress, here's your menus, would you like water or something else? And my son will say, Alex, he's always the troublemaker at dinner, he'll say, hey, my dad's a hypnotist. I'll be like, Alex, shut up. And then the waitress will say, you're a hypnotist? Cool. And I'll say, yes. And then she'll say, hypnotize me. It's a Friday night, it's 7 o'clock. She's got 5 other tables. The manager's yelling in the background. I can hear the kitchen people. I can see the table next door wants to order. If I don't hypnotize her, if I said to her, oh, well, I'd love to, but it's Friday night and you're busy, and I need at least 20 to 30 minutes. I need some binaural beat music. I would have to have a recliner and a more comfortable environment. So here's my card. If you'd like to be hypnotized in my office or send any of your friends for test taking performance and shot putting and curb sitting hypnosis, here's my card. Call me. She's going to walk back to the kitchen and she's going to be like, hey, some dude at table 13 thinks he's a hypnotist. Couldn't even hypnotize me. That's what's going to happen. And so when I say to the waitress, I can't hypnotize you, I have no referrals. I don't do anything to help further the cause of hypnotic education. In fact, I just feel bad like I blew an opportunity. Have any of you had that experience? And so here's where the eye lock comes into play. I don't do this convincer in my office, but I do it in public. And now that my son's put me in this position, and the waitress has, without thinking, because she obviously knows she can't do an hour session right now, that's the logical part of the mind. But when you meet a hypnotist, the first thing you say is, like meeting a comedian, really? Tell me a joke. Hypnotize me. It's like meeting a painter, paint my house. When she says to me, really hypnotize me, I'll say, you'd like to know what hypnosis feels like? She says, yeah, that'd be cool. You all can be my waitress, the collective waitress. And then I'll say to the waitress, I'll say this, I'll say, all right, now, because it's Friday night and it's 7 o'clock and you're real busy and I used to be a waiter, I know you don't have much time. We can do this quickly, okay? There's my agreement. Okay. Now, I'll watch for the manager. That's my pre-talk, in other words, saying, don't worry, I got you covered, I know what's going on here. I'll watch for the manager. All you have to do is just stand there and follow my direction. This will only take about 30 seconds. Are you sure you want to do this? She'll say, yeah. I'll say, all right, cool. Now, you're my collective waitress, so you're just going to follow along. You're leaning against my table. I'm watching for the manager, so don't worry, I'll let you know if Scott comes around. And so go ahead and close your eyes. Now, on a Friday night at 7 o'clock, it feels pretty good to close your eyes, doesn't it? And don't worry, I'll look for the manager, and the other table's busy eating their meatballs right now, so nobody needs your attention at this moment. But with your eyes closed, just take a minute to focus on your breathing in and out. With each breath, bring a sense of relaxation. Let yourself take a mental moment, a break from the busy floor that you're working tonight, and let those eyes really feel a sense of heaviness, of relaxation. You may have even heard a hypnotist say, your eyelids are getting heavy. That's because when we let those little tiny muscles in the eyelids relax, the eyelids feel very heavy. So very heavy that you'll notice that right now, if you try to open your eyes, they become locked down. Try to open your eyes, but find they become stuck tighter and tighter and tighter. Try to open your eyes, find they become stuck tighter and tighter and tighter, deeply relaxed. By the way, if your eyes wide open, that's the eye-opening thing. And then the waitress goes, oh my gosh, I can feel it, my eyes are stuck together. And then she's like, that's it. I said, that you once said you want to know what hypnosis feels like. That's exactly the way hypnosis feels like. It feels like you know you could open your eyes if you wanted to, but they're stuck. Did you feel that? Yeah. And then she says, oh my gosh. And she runs back to the kitchen and she's like, oh my gosh, this guy at table 13, he's a hypnotist. He made my eyeballs stick together. And then what happens is I'm trying to eat my dinner, and all the other waiters and waitresses are like, stick my eyes together too. And now at the end of the night, I've passed out my business card to 20 people, and I've let them know that in addition to having a lot of fun, like sticking eyelids together, we can actually use hypnosis to follow other suggestions, like weight loss, like smoking cessation, like whatever else. Now they all have my business card, and they're all telling people they've been a hypnotist, and they're posting it up on Facebook and everywhere else. Now I'm getting referrals from it. So I don't think that convincer is useful to teach because we're going to do it in the office. I think it's useful to teach because it's the best and funnest convincer for those impromptu public demonstrations of hypnosis. Now, my favorite convincer that I actually do utilize in the office, and I must admit I probably utilize this with about half my people, is the old lemon drop convincer. And the reason why I use this is because for my pain management clients, or pain control clients, as Scott prefers to call them, or my weight loss clients, it becomes a really good convincer. to help them understand exactly how hypnosis can help them. It builds rapport, it involves them in the process, it answers questions that they have, it helps me bring them into a hypnotic state. And it's the old lemon drop convincer, or the old lemon convincer. I don't know how many of you have seen that clip I put up on YouTube of the 1959 movie, The Hypnotic Eye. Gil Boyne actually was the technical consultant for that movie, The Hypnotic Eye, The Great Desmond. It was filmed in Hypnovision. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've seen it, but I don't
There's a YouTube clip I have titled, I can't remember what it's titled, but just type in Boneyard Convincer and you'll find it. And it's the stage hypnosis convincers from Gil Boyne's show in that movie, The Hypnotic Eye. And of course, one of them is the Great Desmond has a lemon, and he's got the lemon in front of the whole audience, and he's actually his evil assistant Justine brings out a lemon on a platter with a knife through it. So imagine you're the audience, and this is being filmed in Hypnovision, and imagine I'm the Great Desmond, the stage hypnotist. And so I take this lemon, this luscious yellow lemon, and I slice this lemon and squeeze this lemon, and as that juice, right? By the way, can you sense that salivation when I just begin talking about that lemon juice? So that's where this comes from. It comes from that old stage hypnosis demonstration. I found that for all the clients I work with, the lemon candy actually works a little bit better in the office. So here's the way it works. Clients will come to me for weight loss, and all weight loss clients who come to me came to me because they're desperate. I'm the last person they call. The weight loss clients who I typically work with are pretty big. I don't help people get from a size 4 to a size 2. I don't help people move from 110 pounds to 105 pounds so that they can, show their ex who's hotter. That's not the weight loss client that I work with. In fact, most of the weight loss clients I work with are 45-year-old men who weigh 450 pounds, and they're on disability because they can't move any longer. And if they don't lose half their body weight in the next 2 years, they die. That's who I work with. And they come to me last. In fact, the person they usually went to first was the bariatric surgeon, and for whatever reasons, they've been ruled out of bariatric surgery, and essentially they feel like they've been sent home to die, and they got one last person to call, and that's the hypnotist. And so they're really not sure why they're at my office. They've tried every diet, they've tried every pill, they've tried the surgery, and they're 427 pounds or 457 pounds, and if they don't lose, they're 48 years old, they haven't left their trailer in 2 years, and if they don't lose half their body weight, they're gonna die, and they know it. That's who shows up in my office for weight loss. By the way, I love working with those guys, number one, because they're successful. Number two, just from a purely a human interest perspective, when somebody who's 480 pounds loses more than half their body weight, their entire identity becomes something entirely different. And it's fascinating to work with them. By the way, that's sometimes extremely difficult for folks. So there are a lot of issues to work with in regards to that transformation as well. It's not all peaches and cream. Sometimes it's really distressing to them, the changes that they now experience. It's really, really kind of powerful. But nonetheless, these weight loss folks come to me, and they've tried everything. In fact, a lot of them actually have had bariatric surgery, and they gained the weight back. I don't know if you know that about bariatric surgery, but a lot of people who have surgery actually gain the weight back. Why? Because the surgery works by restricting intake, and so if you simply eat less of a bad thing, it simply kills you slower. The reality is, my problem with the bariatric surgery is that our problem is not how much we consume. It's what's in the calorie that we consume that's really most important, which is why a lifestyle of nutrient-dense living is far more important than calories or fat grams or anything else. Eat as many nutrient-dense calories as you want to in a day, and you'll find that your body will become the weight that it's supposed to be. But if you simply put less of a bad thing in your body each day, you'll find that you simply gain weight slower. Usually for most people with the bariatric surgery, there's a period of weight loss, and then a year or 2 or 3 later, as their body adjusts to that band, they figure out how to go back to even more than the weight they started with. But nonetheless, people come to me, they're desperate, and they're not quite sure why they're at the witch doctor's office. And so with desperation, they say to me, you know, I've tried everything. If I don't lose this weight, I'm going to die. I've already had TIAs or strokes or minor heart surgery, or I'm already on 5,000 pounds of medication a day. And if this doesn't work, I'm going to die. And I don't understand, how does hypnosis really work? I'm going to close my eyes, and you're going to talk to me, I'm going to open my eyes, and I'm not going to know I'm fat anymore? Or they'll say to me, I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm going to open my eyes, I'm going to be 10 pounds lighter each day? I don't get how this works. They really don't know how it works, but they know that they want what I've said I can help them with. Pain control clients come in the same way. They say, oh my gosh, I have arthritis, and the pain, it won't stop, and I've taken every medication. In fact, I'm still on medication, and my doctor won't give me any more than I'm already taking. He says it'll kill me. And I've had 4 surgeries, and the pain is still there, and the doctor says that there's no medical reason for that pain, and so I should see a shrink. And so now I'm here, and I don't really know. I think hypnosis can help me because I read somewhere on the internet that it could, but this is real pain. It really hurts. How does this work exactly? So my weight loss clients, my very obese clients, and my severe pain clients, they don't have opposition. They don't need to be convinced of hypnosis. But they're not sure how it works. And so when I have those clients ask me, most often out of desperation, not out of suspicion or out of disbelief, how does this work? I usually use that lemon drop convincer to explain it to them. So here's how I do it. Oh, you guys are a big group. All right, I can run. I have my magic shoes on. I like doing this convention. But imagine I had 1 client in front of me, so in a minute you're going to see me running and you'll know why I'm running. It's because I'm going to give everybody in the room an imaginary piece of candy, which means I'm going to have to run around the room and give every one of you an imaginary piece of candy. You can see how easy this would be in the office. I'm setting myself up for actual work here by doing this in the classroom. But when my client who's desperate to lose that weight, or desperate after being treated in pain control programs and taking every medication in the book to feel better, and they say to me, how does this work? I say to them, hypnosis is a wonderful tool. And before we actually do the session, let me take a minute and just explain how hypnosis works by really showing you a hypnotic process or a hypnotic experiment. Now, I'm not going to hypnotize you here, but when we're done with this, you'll know exactly how hypnosis works. By the way, that was a hypnotic suggestion for those of you who weren't paying attention. I've given them the suggestion of exactly how hypnosis works. So, you guys remember when you were kids and you went to the movie theaters? And you went to the movie theaters and they always had those lemon head candies. You know what I'm talking about? They're hard candy and they're sugary on the outside. They're really sweet, but then they have that bitter lemon on the inside. You've all had that candy before, right? Now, by the way, the only thing I found about this convincer and using the lemon drop candy is if they didn't grow up in the USA, they might not have a clue what we're talking about. My wife looks at me like, huh, what the hell are you talking about? Huh? Lemon drop candy, she can't even say it. So, she certainly never had it. So I have found, by the way, that a lot of people in the US, they have no clue what I'm talking about with the lemon head candy. If they aren't from the US originally, I use a regular lemon for this, but I'm going to use the lemon head candy because that's what I usually use. So here's the way it works. Let me take a minute and just show you how hypnosis works. That way you'll understand how your body is going to respond and how you're going to be able to lose the weight in the sessions that we have. So before we go any further, just hold your hand out. Everyone hold your hand up, okay? And close your eyes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some imaginary candy in your hand. So imagine I'm putting some imaginary lemon head candy in your hand. So what I'm doing now is I'm running around the room and I'm putting some imaginary candy in everybody's room or hand. And so just hang on to that imaginary candy till I give it to everybody. Okay, just running around the room putting imaginary candy in everybody's hand. in a minute, everyone will have a piece of imaginary candy. Good thing it's a big bag of imaginary candy because they're a hell of a lot good. Even here in the back of the room. Awesome. Everyone's got some imaginary candy in their hand, right? Okay. Well, take your other hand, grab that imaginary candy, pick it up, and pop it into your mouth. And as soon as you do, taste that sugary exterior, that sweet, delicious hard candy, that sugary exterior that coats that sour, bitter lemon interior. And as that sugary candy melts away, feel that saliva increase and taste that sour, lemon, bitter interior of that candy that tastes just like lemon. In fact, you can put your hand on because I'm not giving you any more imaginary candy. And go ahead and chop up what's left of that imaginary candy. Chop, 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 chop. And now swallow the imaginary candy. Swallow. And open your eyes. By round of applause, how many of you felt an increase in salivation? I don't ask him to do this by round of applause because you're all wonderful. But I'll say this, and what did you notice? Yeah, you started salivating. Yeah, isn't that amazing? And that's exactly how hypnosis works. You see, I never hypnotized you. In fact, I said I wasn't going to hypnotize you. And I never even said this was real candy. I called it imaginary candy the entire time. And yet, even though you weren't hypnotized, and even though we called this imaginary candy, you still produced a very real response. During the process of hypnosis, I'm going to give you some suggestions, and your body is going to respond to that. The same way you salivated, instantly and automatically, in a way that will help you more effectively process the calories that you consume. Intuitively be able to handle and notice an increase in your daily activity. And I'm going to help you produce a physical response to the suggestions that I make here in the office that over the next 2 to 3 to 4 weeks to 5 weeks will help you to experience phenomenal and successful weight loss. I use this convincer to explain that concept to people, and at this point they are filled with hope. Wow, you can really do that. No, you can do it. I'm going to teach you how. So that's how I use that lemon drop convincer. I find it to be real helpful, particularly with my weight loss clients and my pain control clients. So my pain control clients, they say the same thing, but it's real pain. And I say to my pain management clients, you're able to feel that salivation? And just like you can create an automatic response to an imaginary lemon head candy, I'm going to teach you how to create a physical response that can actually help the body control its own pain level. And more importantly, its own comfort level. Sound pretty cool? Great. And now I have participation, I have involvement, I have agreement, I have rapport. I've explained this to them, and now I can go into my complete hypnosis session. So I actually use the lemon drop convincer with the majority of the folks who I work with as a convincer. Now, there are lots of other convincers that can be used. And I guess I'm not going to teach them to you because you can go check them out on YouTube if you want to know how to raise somebody's hand in the air, or you want to know how to stick hands together. Some of those more stage hypnosis things, I rarely ever do those in clinical hypnosis. The other one that I'll actually use in clinical hypnosis that I borrow from stage hypnosis is kind of fun. Everyone kick back from your chair because you're going to need to be able to do this. So give yourself a little bit of room. And just make your foot go in a circle when you're ready. By the way, if you don't know which way is right, it's clockwise. And just have your foot go around in a circle like this. Now take your finger and stick it here in the air where your foot's going clockwise. And now draw the number 6. Yeah, it doesn't work, does it? Huh? Yeah, some of you are going, what does that have to do with hypnosis? Actually, not a damn thing, but it's really freaking cool.
That's like no.
No, that's a good one. Yeah,
So somebody posted that recently. I came across it. I just recently saw that for the first time, and I shared it. I play with this big community drumming group. I said, I wonder if my drumming friends who are really coordinated with all their limbs will have the same kind of difficulty with this that other people. And all of them were like, that's easy. They all did it, no problem. But I can't do it.
Yeah,
I mean, it messes me up. So what?
I'll teach you how to do it, okay?
Yeah.
Make your foot go clockwise again. Stick your finger up in the air. And now draw the number 6, but instead of starting at the top, draw it and start at the bottom, drawing it backwards. Whoa. People say to me at this point, now what does this got to do with hypnosis? Everything. Because hypnosis is about me teaching you how to do something in a way that's different than you've done it before. And by doing something differently than you've done before, you'll have a different outcome. And that's what hypnosis is all about. Or I could use this convincer as, this is the difference between left brain and right brain thinking. And to this point, you've been trying to problem solve, focusing on the analytical, left brain. And I'm going to teach you a process that's going to do that from a different direction. And I'm going to teach you how to do that from the right brain, an emotional perspective. So it's a great convincer to explain left brain and right brain thinking. People actually have a lot of fun with it. By the way, there's one other way to do it. Take your foot, instead of going clockwise, go counterclockwise, go the other way. Now stick your finger in the air, draw the number 6.
Yeah, you do that.
So if we stop doing the same thing over again, expecting different results, and do the same thing differently, we'll actually have different results. Now, when it comes to convincers, I think one of the most effective things to do is move the convincer from the pre-talk into the induction. So this is actually the last thing that I'm going to teach you, and this is how I use the convincer most of the time. With most of my clients, they come into my office, they made an appointment, they paid me, they're there, they understand either because my clients are intelligent or because they have previous experience with hypnosis. I had a lady the other day, she came in smoking cessation. I said to her, great to see you. I'm glad you made the decision to quit smoking. How did you hear about our office? She said, oh, the internet. I said, great. I said, have you ever experienced hypnosis before? She said, oh, yes. I said, oh, really? And when was that? She said, about 10 years ago, I quit smoking using hypnosis. And I stayed a non-smoker until about 2 years ago, and then I started smoking again. So that's why I call you. Those sessions are easy. Those kind of sessions, I don't usually have a lot of pre-talk. My pre-talk with her actually was, well, great, I'm glad you're here. You know, every hypnotist does things a little bit differently. So the process that I'm going to use is probably different than the process your other hypnotists use. But like the success you experienced in the past, you're going to experience success again today. For example, one of the things I do different than most hypnotists is I always use headphones. Scott stands. I don't stand. I got feet problems. I've had foot surgery. I can't stand all day. I sit in my chair. And I actually use a microphone, and they hear my voice over the headphones, which have relaxing music and my voice. And I never do sessions without using headphones and without using a microphone. It creates it's like the difference between listening to a song with headphones and in stereo and listening to it just on the car radio. Both ways are good. You know, both ways you're still listening to Led Zeppelin, but it's a hell of a lot better if you got headphones on. And your mother's happier. And so I use the headphones. So, you know, I explain to clients who have previous hypnotic experience, sometimes, hey, the way I might do things is a little bit different, but the outcome will be the same. Because I have people who've seen other hypnotists and had remarkable results. In fact, if they didn't have good results, they probably wouldn't see another hypnotist. And I suppose that could happen, but rarely does somebody see a hypnotist and it didn't help them, and so they call another hypnotist. No, the next call is to an acupuncturist or a minister or, you know, an MD or somebody else. They was not going to call another hypnotist. So when my clients come in the office, so there usually isn't a lot of opposition. Some of them have previous experience before. If they don't have previous experience, they've read my FAQ on my webpage. They've gone through some of the videos, and they've probably read some of the thousands of comments other people have read about the videos and things like that. So clients usually come in pretty well prepared. I don't really need to convince them of anything. I don't really need to test their susceptibility. But I do want clients, and this is the heart of the question you asked, I want clients to know that they're going into hypnosis. In stage hypnosis, it's very important for me to tell the committee members when they are hypnotized. Listen to a stage hypnotist next time you see a stage hypnosis show. And after I do the induction and after I do the deepener in my stage hypnosis show, I am very specific. And I say to my clients on a stage hypnosis show or subjects or whatever you want to call them. I say, and this is the state we call hypnosis. And so from this time forward, anytime I shake your hand, anytime I snap my fingers, touch you on the forehead, or say your name, you'll instantly, without hesitation, return back to this place of hypnosis. Never asleep, but deeply relaxed. Always able to hear my voice, but always acting on each suggestion I give. That's what I say in stage hypnosis, because I want them to know they're hypnotized. In stage hypnosis, I'm very overt about it and tie it to the suggestion, we call it the sleep command in stage hypnosis, that they'll return back to this state whenever I ask them to. Okay? But I do the same thing in clinical hypnosis. I'm just less overt. After I do my induction, after I do my deepener, I say to my clients, and this is the point we call hypnosis. I'm not asleep, but deeply relaxed. Always able to hear my voice. And if at any time during this process you're uncomfortable or have a question, you know it's perfectly okay to simply count 1, 2, 3 and open your eyes. It's perfectly okay during this process for you to ask me a question and to answer the questions that I ask you. Feeling comfortable with each breath continuing to relax. One of the other things that I do after the induction and after the deepener, in addition to telling them that this is the state that we're looking for, is I also normalize the process that I'm about to go into. And so I'll say to my clients, over the next few minutes, you may even hear me reading from a book or looking at my notes. And the reason why, of course, is because I want to make sure that I cover everything that's important to you. And so I try to normalize the process from the very beginning when they first walk in the door throughout the entire hypnosis session by telling them we are at that point of deep relaxation, never sleep, but deeply relaxed. And it's normal for them to hear me leafing through a book and reading them a story or even glancing at my notes. Because anytime we normalize the process, what we've done is we've essentially convinced them that they can remain in hypnosis. Now, I said we were going to move the convincer into the induction. There are a lot of different ways to do hypnotic induction. There's not a right or a wrong way. You can use the same induction every time you want to, and you can do it. You can induce hypnosis any way you want to. It's fine with me. One of the things that I typically do during my induction, though, is I try to create experiences for them. Because when a client has that, what Carl Rogers called the aha moment, this is when I'm hypnotized, they go even deeper into hypnosis. And so I find it almost more important to put the convincer into the induction. And so probably the easiest way for me to teach this to you is to simply do a quick hypnotic induction. I love doing this with hypnotists because you already know what that state of learning and trance feels like, so it's fairly easy, especially after lunch, to get you to that point. And I'm going to guide you through a fairly quick hypnotic induction, and I'm going to move the convincer into the induction. And when we're done with our induction, I'll reorient you into the room because I wouldn't want you to get stuck in hypnosis. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we move the convincer into the process. Sound good? Great. By the way, that was my consent to hypnotize. Always work with people who want to work with you. By the way, here's a great thing. So, Steve, have you ever experienced hypnosis before?
Yes.
Great. You know, I love working with people who are experiencing hypnosis and know how to use that creativity and that part of the mind. So you're going to be great at this. I'll say no.
No.
Wait, I haven't asked the question yet. Look, he's already responding to my suggestions.
You didn't say no.
So, Steve, have you ever experienced hypnosis before?
No. No.
You know, awesome. I love working with people who are learning something new. You know, hypnosis is a creative process, and people who are learning how to use this aspect of the creative part of the mind tend to do the best. So, it's going to be great working with you. So that's how I handle that one, yes or no. It's a great, I learned that from magic.
Yes.
I paid for college doing magic and balloon animals at kids' birthday parties. It's called the Force. And so it doesn't matter. It's a great little thing to learn. How to how to go either way with it, by always being a first, say I'm giving him suggestions and he'll do well, using whatever answers he gives me. But I'm going to go through a quick process here, and I'm going to move the convincer into the induction, and then we'll spend a couple of minutes talking about it, and then I'll be out of time. So take in a breath, and as you exhale, close the eyes. And continue to focus on your breath, breathing in and breathing out. Now you don't have to speed up or slow down your breath, but simply pay attention to it. And since most of you in this room are pretty familiar with hypnosis, you can begin to bring yourself to a place of physical and mental relaxation coupled with awareness and learning. And you can set aside any cares or concerns of the day by simply focusing on that breath anytime you notice your mind wandering, returning your attention to that breath, letting it be the focal point. Noticing how with each breath, in and out, the breath becomes more smooth and more rhythmic. And the heart rate begins to slow. There are over 200 little muscles in the eyes and the face. Scott talked about that hypnotic mask earlier, and you can actually let those little tiny muscles relax. Feeling a sense of relaxation in your face, the brow, letting go of any tension in the jaw. You can let that chin drop towards your chest a bit, and when you do that, you'll notice that the muscles in the shoulders and neck easily relax. You would drop your shoulders, sensing that relaxation extend into the forearms and wrists and hands, and even into the little tiny muscles of the fingers. Pretty cool to focus on the little muscles of the fingers, and how they can relax deeply. And as your back relaxes and your diaphragm relaxes. Want a sense of relaxation with each breath in and each breath out. Extend through the buttocks and thighs, calves, shins, and even to the little tiny muscles of the feet. Even the little tiny muscles of the toes. Now, to this point, you may have been thinking about the process, letting the analytical part of the mind work. It's perfectly okay for your mind to think. After all, that's what minds do, is they think. And so if you find yourself distracted, simply return back to that breath, paying attention to that state of physical relaxation that you've created. As the muscles in the eyelids relax, they of course feel a sense of heaviness. You may have even heard a hypnotist say, your eyes are getting heavy. That's because when you let those muscles relax, they become heavy. Just like the hands, as they relax, become heavy. If you need to move for comfort or swallow, that's perfectly okay. In fact, it won't disturb you. It'll help you relax even further with each breath in and out, doubling that sensation of relaxation. Now focus on your hands. As you focus on your hands, think of the word warmth. Warmth like that which might come from the sun, or warmth like that which might come from the inside of your body. And let your hands feel a sense of warmth. Saying to yourself, my hands are warm. My hands are warm. And let your hands feel the sense of warmth. Think of the word heavy. Focus on those relaxed muscles in your hands and say to yourself, my hands are warm and heavy. My hands are warm and heavy. Simply let them be warm and heavy. So heavy that even though you know you could lift your hands if you wanted to, or open your eyes if you wanted to, when you try to open your eyes or try to lift your hands, you'll find they become heavier and heavier, locked down even tighter. With every breath, deeply relaxed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Trying to open the eyes, trying to lift the hands, finding them become heavier and heavier, locked down even tighter. all the way down now, completely relaxed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Perfect. Entering that place we call hypnosis. Never sleep, but deeply relaxed. With each breath, doubling our sensation of relaxation and opening our minds to learning, finding it easy to retain the information that Scott presents, that I presented, and that others present. And knowing how and when to use it to be most helpful to others who we work with in our professional lives. And although the state feels wonderful, since it's only a demonstration, it's time to pay attention to the floor below your feet, to the air in the room around you, to my voice, and taking a deep breath, letting yourself feel energized. Letting your hands feel a sense of lightness, your eyelids feeling a sense of lightness. And when I count to 3, open the eyes, feeling absolutely fantastic. 1, 2, 3, opening the eyes, feeling great. Now that was a short and simple process, couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 minutes. You guys all did great. Some of you experienced that at different levels and different experiences than others. Again, you have a room with 30 people, 30 different people experience things in different ways. But I actually moved the convincer into the induction. And what was the convincer I used? Yep. But I did both with different illustrators. Usually I'll do the eye lock if I use it during the induction. Or I'll use their hands locked to their lap. Trying to lift your hands, finding the harder you try to lift them, the heavier they become. You're doing perfect. All the way down now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I've been doing hypnosis for 23 years. I've never had anybody do this. Never. Could it happen? Yeah. If it did happen, I would say, you are doing a great job of really paying attention to the suggestions that I'm making. You're really able to focus on every word, aren't you? And they'd say, yes. And I would say, then go ahead and close your eyes, and I'm going to show you a way to experience the words that I'm saying, rather than listen to the words that I'm saying. And then I would go into a visualization and blah, 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 blah. But I've never had anybody go, but what's the experience they have when I tell them? What was the experience that you had? Your eyes are deeply relaxed, your hands are deeply relaxed. Think of the word heavy. How many of you felt warmth, by the way? Feel that sense of warmth?
You bet.
That was a convincer, because the room didn't get any warmer. But when you feel warmth, you say, holy mackerel, this hypnosis thing is working. I actually do feel a sense of warmth. Now, those of you who aren't very kinesthetic might not have experienced warmth, but you may have experienced heaviness, or maybe experienced that heaviness even if you didn't experience warmth. And so, when I ask you to try to lift your hands or try to open your eyes, I didn't see anybody in the room do this. And it moves the convincer into the induction. I think it's much more powerful in the induction rather than before the session. So let's say I stuck their hands to the table. That would be a stage hypnosis convincer that clinical hypnotists like to do. Okay, Jackie, welcome. I'm glad you came to the office. It's for your 2 o'clock appointment. Go ahead, put your hand on the table. Just rest your hand on the table. I want you to think of the word heavy. Go ahead and close your eyes. Think of the word heavy. And think of your hand being heavy. And try to lift your hand, but find it becomes heavy. Let it become heavy. Try to lift it, but let it become stucker and stucker on that table. Jackie, open your eyes. Right? Now lift your hand up. Okay, now, see, great convincer before the session, but really unnecessarily Las Vegas. And that makes me look creepy. My clients didn't pay me to impress them with my hypnotic skills of showmanship. They paid me to help them solve the problem. So if I'm much more subtle and simply bring this into the induction, then any part of her mind that wasn't accepting of the process automatically becomes accepting of the process. because she experiences it here in the induction, and I think it makes it much more effective. All right, I've taken enough time. Anyone have any questions? Ask him, Scott, any questions, any thoughts? Anybody have any questions?
I want to add one thing to what you were saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll come up.
Yes, come up, because I don't want it to look like it's me just standing here while you're talking.
It would be weird television.
Kind of like standing on TV.
Stand on TV, as if nobody wants. Okay, so 2 things I want to say about what all this stuff that Richard said, and thank you, by the way, for sharing it. And some of it you said, stuff that I had said, and it's really good to hear somebody else say the same thing.
Well, I haven't the same thing said twice.
It's nice. 2 things I want to bring up before, and then you guys can take a break. The first thing is that number 6 thing. What does this have to do with hypnosis? Nothing. What does this have to do with hypnosis? Everything. And that application of how this actually works, really cool, because that gets into, again, pacing and leading. They're thinking, what does this have to do with hypnosis? And then you say it out loud. They're like, yeah, exactly. You say nothing, and they go, yeah, exactly. You say, what does this have to do with hypnosis? It's all in the framework of let's approach this differently. The other piece I just want you to think about and touch on, the lemon drop, I love the way you do that. That's why I didn't show you guys that when I wanted him to do it. It's great. Think of that also in terms of Pavlov's dogs. Think of that in terms of a biochemical conditioned response from an arbitrary stimulus. When you start thinking about that's the way we automatically learn and integrate information, and it's biochemistry changing in you because he talked about some imaginary candy. When you take that and apply it with your clients and really go that level and go, this is just like Pavlov's dogs, and you can learn to have it be that automatic. So those are the only 2 things I want
And
to
I
add.
have actually said that to clients.
Sure.
They said, I'm not really sure how this whole thing in weight loss is going to work. And I'll say to them, you ever hear of Pavlov and his dogs? Everyone has. And they said, yeah. And it works exactly like that. When you hear the bell, you're going to sell it. And we're going to change the response.
So cool. So I assume you guys want a 5-minute break right now? Around, yeah? Let's take a 5-minute break and then we're going to get into script stuff as soon as you get back. So, quick 5 minutes. Thank you, Richard. Within like 3 minutes of exactly on time.
All right. Good. That's my job.
Like you'd done this before or something, Richard, almost.
You know, I just finished reading this book on.
It's a good book. It's a good.